Hi, everyone. If we can have you take a seat, I think we'll go ahead and get started. I'm always impressed by how quickly you guys get quiet. So, a couple of cover. If use the restroom, it's out the door to the left. There's also a bottle for your water bottle there. As try to hold forward so that it doesn't noise. Those lines are blinding the base program. So if you do not want your face to appear on screen, don't round and look at the camera. And those recordings will be available. Have you ever done film editing or rendering? It takes much longer than you think it does. So I will have it posted as soon as I can, but it does take a day. So I will have that out. You can find it on the library's YouTube. And we like what is all environmental gardening. And previous programs that was done are available on there as well. So those are the logistics. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Sam. I'm the Community Engagement Librarian here. The programs I do are either for the benefit of nonprofit leaders or collaboration with nonprofit leaders. So you can catalog if you are involved with nonprofits for our nonprofit know-how. And then the programs with CFC, we do the women voters, and we haven't decided who's going for the prize yet. You can find those recordings on our website. Then the other pitch that I promised to make, not this Tuesday, but a week from Tuesday, I am doing a program in collaboration with CFC and suburban astronomers. It was supposed to be February 24th, and the sides did not cooperate. And I just checked the 10-day forecast, and it's not looking great for March 24th either. But we're going to try. And if you register, please register. And then our backup plan for this time is that Tommy and Author will share some of their tremendous slides, celestial slides from the first celestial photography from their travels here at the library. So with that said, I'm going to turn things over to Ellen Smith from CFC. Thanks, Sam. All right.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to all of you here at the library and those of you who are with us online on Zoom for today's program, Native Plants for Shade Gardens. I'm Ellen Smatlack, and I'm a member of CFC's Program Committee. And I have a few important announcements before Peggy gives us her presentation. Some opportunities and announcements. If you haven't already, now is a great time to pre-order plants for pickup at our May plant sale. CFC members get 10% off, and the chance to make sure you're going to get the plants you really want if you pre-order and show up on May 1st, when you can also do some more shopping before the public comes on May 2nd and 3rd. If you would like more information about plants, there's great information on the CFC website, and better still, if you would like somebody to come and visit your yard and do a yard walk and provide some suggestions and identifications to help you make choices and decisions, CFC has a program called Habitat Corridors. If you're here in person, there's some brochures over there. You can pick one up. This walk is free for CFC members and $25 if you're not. So go ahead and join, because then you get 10% off the plant sale and a free garden walk. Our next meeting is going to be a month from now, and that will be Steve Barton talking and presenting amazing photographs of the wildlife that show up in Lake County. That is April 12th, online or in person here at the library. Secret Wildlife of Barrington, a trail camera deep dive. And the minimum order for pre-orders is $50. You can join online or in person. And I think those are the key announcements here. Again, we thank the library for hosting us. And with that, I'd like to introduce Peggy Simonson, who has been a volunteer with CFC for 22 years. She recently retired from the board of directors and is a former president. She's chaired the Community Ed program for many years, and when you see her slides and hear her, you will know she is an expert in shade plants using natives, and that's what she's here to talk with us about today. Peggy.
Oh, I'm on the wrong side. Okay, now I'm live. Thank you all for coming. I think I'll stand over on this side. I've been after our the gal who orders the plants for our plant sale for a number of years to increase the number of shade plants that she orders, because I know so many of you have been doing good native shrub planting and trees, and you have more shade than you've had in the past, and we're increasing the need for shade plants. We still have some good prairie stuff too, but we're going to really get into the details about the shade plants today. Okay. This, by the way, is a picture of my front yard. I live back up to Deer Grove Forest Preserve, and so I have these native elms, not elms, oaks and hickories and walnuts in the yard. And when we moved in, the previous owners had tried to put grass under there, and the grass didn't want to be there, and the oaks didn't want the grass around it. And so we meticulously dug out the grass, and I've started planting the natives underneath here. Is this not going to work? Come on. One more technical issue. Why isn't it going forward? Just, no? I'd like you to know that I'm more of an expert on plants than I am on technology.
It just needed to be woken up, I guess.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you. Okay. One of the things that, this is my backyard, we have several plants that are not particularly good for flowering, but the edging there is wild ginger and makes a good ground cover. It'll spread if you want it to, or it pretty much stays in line. Very easy to transplant. So if you get too much of it in one spot, you can just fill it in other areas. So I'm going to, and here's a picture of the woods. This is a woodland sunflower in the fall when there's not much else blooming in the woods. And we always want to have something flowering in the fall for the bees and butterflies. People put the milkweed in the spring for them to have lay their eggs, but we need to have them flowering in the fall, and woodland sunflowers is one of them. Anyway, this is the categories we'll be talking about. The spring ephemerals, the ones that come up and are beautiful for a short period and then die back, still have a role. But there's also the ones that bloom in the spring, that don't die back. We'll continue on with that. We'll talk a little bit about some of the spring shrubs and trees that are blooming. Ferns and grasses and sedges. I didn't have that up there, but I just had a conversation with somebody that wants to replace grass, and sedges is one of the ways we're going to do that. There are some summer blooming shade plants. Sometimes we transition to more of the sun plants in the summer, but you also want some shade ones. And then some things that happen in the late fall, and some fall trees and shrubs, some of which have berries on that carry through the winter for you. So those are the categories we'll be talking about. Also a little bit about when you're thinking about which ones you put in, do you have deep shade or dappled shade? If it's the side of a building, the north side of a building, it's deep shade. It doesn't, not likely ever get sun. If it's a tree, that hasn't leafed out yet, you might be able to plant some sun-loving plants because they're getting full sun if they're early enough. But so we're looking also at that's the spring sun and summer shade. Different plants will be worked there. Also, do you have dry mesic or wet shade? There's certain plants that are better in wet than in dry, obviously. And dry shade is a tough one to try to deal with. And I know a number of you have that under some evergreens or whatever. What kind of soil do you have? That's going to make a difference as well. And most of us do in this area have some pretty bad clay, and I push the limits on it all the time, trying to amend it a little bit. But if you have good organic soil, you'll just have a wealth of plants coming up. And the other question is, do you want them to be landscaped gardens or natural areas? I also sometimes talk about I have a program on native plants for front yard planting. So people don't put, what are some of what's that? I didn't hear what that was said. Anyway, the compass plant or something, that's a prairie plant, and then their neighbors think it looks weedy. So there are certain plants that same thing is true with the shade plants. Do you want it to be an organized landscape area or natural, and let them just spread? And they're both obviously very good. So that's what we're going to be doing here. Here we go again. Oops. Okay, let's start with the early spring, March and April. Non-native that I have in my yard right now, the crocuses are coming up, are blooming. But it's okay to have a few of the non-natives as well mixed in. Oh, by the way, this photo is bloodroot. This is a beautiful plant. It has an interesting history. I had a patch of them in my, sort of came up natively in the far back, and the March are not out very much in the backyard. So I wanted to move them forward, but they moved by themselves. And I wondered, how do they have a very large seed. And so it's not wind blown. How did they get from way back there to over here? And then I learned about the ants. Ants are the propagators. The seed has a pulp around it that the ants eat and then drop the seeds wherever they happen to be. And those seeds will come up and be a nice patch of bloodroot. The flowers only last about a couple of weeks, but they come up wrapped up in their leaves. And then when the leaves open and the flowers come up, they're very showy. They're big. They're very showy, but short time. This is one of the ephemerals. The leaves last a while, but will also ultimately die back too. By the way, I'm going to be showing you a whole lot of flat plants. And as Sam said, the program will be on their website. So if you need to go back and say, now, what was it you were talking about? You'll have a way to come back to get through them. And if you have quick questions, you're welcome to ask them while I'm talking. But if you have, discussions, we'll keep those till the end, and we'll have a chance to do that. So, okay. Rue anemone. This is an unusually large patch of it. Usually they're little scattered flowers, but it's another one that is ephemeral. Comes up, it's beautiful. They do bloom. The bloom lasts a little bit longer than the bloodroots do, but a gorgeous plant. And they'll pop up here and there. I was just talking with somebody about getting rid of buckthorn, and how once the soil heals, because the buckthorn poisons the soil. When I moved into my house, we have a hillside that was full of buckthorn. We cut it down and herbicided it to get rid of it. And the next spring, the rue anemones were popping up. They'd been hiding there for probably 20 years while the people, let the buckthorn go. And when that was gone, I started having these pop up all over. Spring beauty is another one that is ephemeral. Again, you'd rarely see the big clump of them like that. They're likely to sprinkle themselves here and there. We were doing a plant rescue at CFC some years ago in a property that was about to be built on. And at the time, Tom Vanderpool had permission for us to be able to go in and dig some plants. And we were getting mostly spring beauty, but there were some clumps that were so full of garlic mustard that they left them behind for restoration. So I took a couple of those and methodically pulled out all the garlic mustard and planted them. And then they've sprinkled themselves around on my hillside. So that was where I got that. We have had some of these at our plant sale. They look sad in the spring because there's one little plant in a pot, but they'll live and they'll be fine. I noticed the name Claytonia virginica. I met a woman named Virginia Clayton one time, and I said, "Do you know there's a plant named after you?" She didn't know that. Toothwort's another one that is just sort of, if you walk in the forest preserve, you're likely to see these blooming. Can be very prolific. Its leaves last a little bit longer, so that they're there. I don't know if you can tell from the picture there, but it looks like an upside down tooth, which is where it gets its name, dentaria. But they too will sprinkle themselves around. So sometimes instead of expecting it to just be one plant in one spot in a organized garden, you can spread them out, and I mean, they'll spread themselves out. I have these along an area that I don't have many annuals, but there's one area along the sidewalk that I put annuals in, but these come up first. So in the spring they're there, and then I can just plant the annuals amid. When they're all gone, there's something else left behind. And Dutchman's breeches is another one that is, notice the shape of those upside down. Kind of hard to find. We may, once in a while we get them. For the plant sale, we used to have a grower that had a number of these woodland shade plants, and he sold the business, and the buyer was supposed to continue to sell them, and he hasn't. So we have a hard time finding these to purchase. But boy, if you have a chance to get some, put these in. They have that little lacy leaf to them that stays quite a while, even after the flowers are done, and they bloom quite a while. And they bloom a little bit later, so you're more likely to be outside and enjoying them. Trout lilies are another one that is an ephemeral. It's, if you walk in the woods in the forest preserve, you might see whole masses of them. I've had them in my backyard. They're hard to transplant. The root, the corm goes way, way down, but they do plant by seed. The problem with them is, as a young plant, it takes 7 years before they flower. So if you have a chance, if you have a natural area and you have a chance to see them, encourage them. Last year, my backyard was just white with them. They just spread themselves all over that, and the Dutchman's breeches and the toothwort. I mean, it's just a gorgeous sight. So a pretty plant. This is the hepatica. This is a sharp-lobed hepatica. We haven't been able to get the round-lobed ones lately. They're rarely that purple. They're more likely to be that sort of a lavender color. And the neat thing about these, the flowers bloom in the spring, but the leaves last all winter, I mean all summer, so that you don't have a bare spot if you plant them. Very, very nice plant, and they'll spread, get larger, and they do transplant pretty easily. They don't sprinkle around as much, but they get to be a nice shaped plant. Here's the leaf. This is what it looks like in the summer after they've gone to seed. So you've got a good little plant there. Bloodroot, that's the one that I had that early photo of, and you can see how the flower is sort of curled up inside the leaf, and then it opens out to the pretty, and it makes a nice show, but again, sort of short-lived. So you have some of these things in the spring. We'll talk a little bit about what you plant amongst them, so when they die back, you'll have something still there. So in late spring,
I'm sorry, before you go on, we have one question from someone online, I think relating to the ephemerals.
Oh, okay.
About which is the best food plants for emerging bees. For bees, when it starts to warm up.
Bees. Most of them are, they have the pollen exposed. This one is wonderful, the phlox, the woodland phlox. It's a little bit later. Like the other ones are likely to be April, if we can predict that. This is likely to be early May, but they're my favorite. First of all, they're showy, and they last a long time. They bloom and bloom and bloom, as opposed to the ones that die back, and then the leaves stay a good deal of the summer. So yes, the bees will just be circling over them, perhaps because of the time of year that they come in. So I showed you the rue anemone before. This is the wood anemone, and it is, the leaves are, again, it blooms in the spring, but the leaves stay and make a nice mat. so that it's not completely dying back, one of the roots. And it transplants easily. So if you have a large group of it, you can divide them. Another one you're probably familiar with, the wild columbine. It goes from the pinkish that in the large picture to the brighter or sort of coral color. This is the only native columbine in this area. You may see the big purple columbine, which is the Colorado state flower. It's a nice plant, but it's not native here. This is the one that's native. And they too last longer. And the leaves stay all summer. So again, you have the flowers in the spring, but won't completely die back. You may know about Jack in the Pulpit you see in the woods. This one really wants some nice soil. It doesn't like clay, but unfortunately the deer like it. I don't know if you yeah. Is the one on the right native and the one on the left not native? No, they're just variations of the color. Sometimes you'll get a little more orange, and sometimes they'll be a little more pink.
I'm sorry, Peggy, can you repeat the question for the folks online?
Yeah, she asked about if one of these was native and one was not, and I said no, they're the same native plant, but they come in varying colors, a little bit from the coral to the pink. So yeah. Okay. The Jack in the Pulpit, I don't know if you can see, I'm not sure if my pointers will work, but how do I do that? If the plant on the left, as you're looking at it, if you can see the little sort of a cowl over the top of it, that's the pulpit, and that's where the seeds grow, and really are pretty spectacular in the fall when they grow. And the plant can get to be, sometimes it'll stay about a foot or so, but it can get to be two or maybe 30 inches tall. Really nice showy plant. And I think we do get some of those at the plant sale. I'm not remembering if we had. Goat's beard is a little more of a shrub. It's not big, but it's maybe 3 feet tall or so, and it gets these little feathery flowers on them. And the leaves stay all summer. It's nice to have one that's a little bit higher if you have some of the lower ones, to be able to have a little more sculpture, a little more dimension to it. And then there's the wild ginger. That was a picture. I got to take a new photo and get the sticks out of there, but that really good ground cover. Someone was asking if we could put something on the ground that kids can play on. This would not be it, but boy, if you have an area, it spreads pretty easily. So if you have an area that you want to fill in the shade, it's great. Lasts all summer, of course. It dies back in the winter, so you don't have anything there. When we moved in, I had the hillside on the front of my house that you saw in the first photo, and where we had to take the grass out, and I was trying to find something that to replace the grass, and I thought about the ginger, but the problem is it does die back in the winter, and I needed something that would hold the erosion at that time. The sedges are the answer to that, but we'll come to that. But it has a little red flower underneath, but it's insignificant. You don't plant it for the flower, you plant it for the being able to fill in the space. And here's some water plants, the marsh marigold. Now this ordinarily, I mean, it does want sun, but if your stream area or your wet area has trees over it that haven't leafed out yet, it'll bloom. That's the case in my yard, and it wouldn't get sun in July, but it gets sun in May and early June because the oak trees over it haven't leafed out yet, and the walnuts actually. But a beautiful plant for any kind of a wet area. So, and again, it makes a nice clump. We typically do have those at the plant sale. And here's the wild hyacinth. Again, it's one that its leaves don't die back, but it has this beautiful stalk of flowers, blooms, along a little bit later, maybe early June. So we've got the early spring ephemerals, and then we can move into some of the ones that last a little bit longer. Yeah. I'm sorry? No. I don't know if I wouldn't think people would eat it. Oh, okay. The question was, is it poisonous? And I don't think you would want to eat it, but I don't know. Oh, I've never, yeah. She said it reminds, wondering about children and what reminds her of something, not that I know of. I have to look into that, but yeah, it's not one to be known to be poisonous like some of the things are to touch. Yeah. Here are the shooting stars. They too are more likely, I mean, they like sun, but they bloom in the spring if your trees haven't leafed out yet, so you can put them in a shady area or a part that gets a little bit of shade and sun. And they are white when they start, and then they turn a little bit lavender as they get older. As the plant ages a little, the flower ages a little bit, it turns a little bit lavender. But another one that can go prairie or shade depending on where the sun comes. And of course, you know about the wild geranium. Again, this is the varying shades of lavender. My granddaughter was visiting one time in April, and she counted 12 different lavenders, purples and lavenders in the spring. But this is really a good garden plant. You may have these already, they're pretty common. But this is the native geranium. There are others that aren't. And of course, the leaf is nice and fills in and stays all summer as well. And it blooms quite a while. So it's a really good garden plant. And we do get those at the plant sale. The golden seal is rare. I managed to get this one to live for a while, and then it's kind of died back when it got too shady. Again, it comes up in the sun in the spring and has this nice leaf. Just kind of a special thing that you don't see very often, but a very nice little plant. And here again, the three leaf there isn't it. The Virginia water leaf is the blooming plant there with the sort of a 5-part leaf to it. This is a good ground cover as well, but it's not very well behaved. So I have it around my shed at the back of the yard, and it just fills in and looks gorgeous. But you wouldn't just plant a plant and expect it to stay there in your garden. It's not a landscaping plant. It has a really thick root system that'll spread all over the place. But boy, if you have an area that you just want to fill in and don't want grass, and you don't want to have to take care of lawn, this is a good one to fill in that space. Or under evergreens, for example, it'll grow and spread in the deep shade. So it's a good one to have. And here's another one of the wet plants, the blue flag iris. It's alongside, it blooms a little bit after the marsh marigolds that I showed you earlier, but the native iris, and it wants its feet wet. I had it planted along my spring, and several years ago, we had 7 inches of rain and everything washed out. And I thought, oh no, it's washed the iris away. But what it did was wash them from a little bit of the hillside down into the deeper part of the stream, and they're doing fine. So they're there. And there used to be, I live next to the Deer Grove Forest Preserve, and there used to be well, there is a stream, the stream that runs under Quentin Road. And on one side of it, there used to be a whole big patch of blue flag iris. Unfortunately, the reed canary grass and other things have filled in, and I think it's wiped it out. So it doesn't like a lot of competition, but boy, it's a beautiful plant if you have a space to put it in some water. And here are the Virginia bluebells. I'm sure you see those and know about them. They make a really nice show in the spring, and they're bigger than some of the little ephemerals. They too are ephemeral, and that can be a problem because they're so big and their leaves are so big that when they die back, they leave a blank space because they completely, along about June or so, they're gone. Really showy in the meantime, but I recommend planting them with ferns because the ferns come up later. And these are dying back, and so you need to do them at the same time though, because if you wait until August to plant the ferns, you won't know where these were, and you have to dig around them. But again, one of those really showy spring flowers. And this was the phlox I talked about earlier. It is, I might say, if you don't get any other spring plants, get some woodland phlox, and we have lots of them at the plant sale. You'll be happy with them. They bloom, they're hardy, they last a long time, they spread, you can dig them and move them around if you want to. There's just nothing negative about them. And you know about the May apples. You may see big masses of them in the woods if you go out, and they fill in 10 or 15 feet. I haven't had them spread quite that much. They like a nice woodland soil. And again, the flowers are kind of hiding under the leaf. I was talking with somebody at one point who said they used to play with them as a child, and these were umbrellas, and playing with the plants. We sometimes can get them at the plant sale, and I know. I think Patty talked about a whole mass of them in your backyard, right? They will spread, and they really work as a ground cover as well. But a beautiful plant. Now this is the other one that looks like the phlox, but it's Jacob's ladder. The flower is a little different, but it too is another one of the lavenders from the spring. But it blooms quite a while, a little bit longer than some of the ephemerals, and does not die back. In fact, its clump can stay landscapey for a while. It also spreads by seed and easy to transplant. To get a big clump of it, and you want to separate it and move it around, it'll be fine with that. And we get these at the plant sale typically. Here's the celandine poppy. It blooms, again, it can have sun or shade. It blooms a little bit later, maybe June, and is really showy. And it's one of the yellows. You've seen all of the lavenders, and now here we have one of the yellows along with the marsh marigolds. This is small. It'll get a little bit taller and a little bit bigger, and almost shrub-like if you want it to fill in sort of the back of an area. So a great one. There's several trillium they're really hard to find. Again, the nursery that used to grow the trillium for us isn't doing so anymore. But this one's rare. You're not likely to find it. And unfortunately, the deer love the trillium. So if you have them in your yard, and if you have deer, I put little wire cages over them. But this is one of the white trilliums that has more of a spiky leaf. But then there's the large leafed grandiflorum, as it's called. This is the one you're probably most likely to see. Years ago, my brother had a cabin in Minnesota, and it was a dirt road that led to it. And both sides of the dirt road were full of the white trillium. And they were about to widen the road and bury them. So we dug a bunch of them up, and my mother was alive then and knew about all the native flowers in Minnesota, and she knew you have to dig, the corm goes way down, you have to dig way down to get it. So my husband was learning how to dig plants. We brought a whole trunk full of them home. I put them into a section of my yard that had been buckthorn and messy, and we planted them in there. And the next spring, and they lived, and the next spring I went out to see them, and the leaf was coming up, and pretty soon the bud was coming up, and the next day I went out, were all eaten completely down by the deer. And so I left them, I didn't dig, and the next year a couple of them came up here and there. I was just so devastated, they were so gorgeous. But I have learned that you have to protect them from the deer, and you leave one day and they'll be gone. Unfortunately, we used to have masses of them in our forest preserves, but the deer have eaten them all. The only time you'll see them now, once in a while, if you go into a forest preserve, they've done a deer exclosure where they've put a wire, section around. They'll have some trillium in there, but not if they're out where the deer can get them. So it's too bad. They're just a gorgeous plant. There's also the yellow trillium that's rarer and not as showy, but a nice little plant as well. And I don't think the deer, or maybe mine was hiding and the deer didn't find it, but it's not as showy as the grandiflorum. And then this is the red trillium, the recurvatum, that is typically more likely to be seen out in the woods and may come up if you have some natural areas in your yard. They pop up here and there, and they're not as likely to be eaten by the deer, although sometimes they will. So, but this is a good one, and we've been able to get some of these for the plant sale on occasion. But a nice plant. They even after the flower is done, the leaves stay, so they're not dying back. So they're a nice garden plant. And then there's the marybells or bellwort, uvularia. Again, the flowers bloom early June maybe, and the leaves stay all winter, all fall, all summer. So you have a nice arrangement of them. And they get a little fuller than that. This is a younger plant, and they get a little bushier when they get older. So one more of the yellows for you. And then there's the violets. This is the downy yellow violet, the native, which is a little rarer. And I think I have the purple. I don't have the purple violet, but the other violets around too, and those are good. Here are the ferns, the whole section of ferns, all of which like shade, some of which needed moisture than others. This is the maidenhair fern. I think I have another photo of it, but it has these fronds with the little black stems on them. That is the maidenhair. Lovely plant. They get to be about 24 to 30 inches tall and spread out. Really do a nice job. I have these planted around my fountain, and they like having the sprinkles of the water coming out on them. Oh, here we go with it. You can see what it looks like. There's the royal fern. This one wants it to be wetter. The fronds get to be pretty tall. I mean, they'll be 30 inches long or something like this. I planted some of these in my rain garden last year, but with the drought, even though I was watering the rain garden, which shouldn't have to do, but the drought, the royal ferns weren't happy. They really do want it to be consistently wet. The lady fern's another tough one that really helps fill in a space nicely. Plant these alternately with your Virginia bluebells, and when the bluebells die back, you still have a nice ferns in the space. The oak fern is harder to find. It's tinier. You're likely to see it in a deep oak woods. If you have some really wooded areas, it likes it, but a little bit moisture, you see the moss that it's growing with. Pretty little fern. The sensitive fern is sensitive because apparently, if you touch the leaf, it'll curl a little bit. It reacts to your touch. Not as tough as the lady fern. The ostrich fern is the one, if you see ferns along the road, this is the one you're likely to be seeing growing out there. It gets pretty big, but if you have a big area to fill in, you might want this one. It's tough and it's big. I mean, it'll be maybe up to 30, 40 inches tall sometimes, but of course it bends back. So it's not a specimen landscape fern as much as it is, if you have an area along back of fence or something that you want to fill in, that's a good one to put in. And it's pretty aggressive. Cinnamon fern is called that because it's what's stamen? No, it's the stalk it looks like a stalk of cinnamon. It's not edible. It doesn't taste like cinnamon. But one of the varieties we have. And the Christmas fern, I recommend, it's the toughest one. It'll grow almost anywhere. And it's called Christmas fern because it stays green until it gets buried in snow at Christmas. And next spring, those leaves will still be there and the new fronds come up around it. So if you don't have a green thumb and you want to have ferns, this one will work for you. Okay, let's a little bit about the flowering trees and shrubs. Yes. Yeah.
Propagate by seed, or is it only through division or bare root or what?
Okay. The question is about ferns, and do they propagate by seed or is it just by roots? That would be very hard I mean, a grower can do it by seed, but it's not likely to in your yard. If they get big enough, you can divide them, but they do spread by roots as well, so they'll spread a little bit more. But they're pretty well behaved, with the exception of the ostrich fern. So if you want them as a landscape plant, you might buy as many as you want to spread, and they'll probably stay there. If you want it to take over an area, as I mentioned with the ostrich fern, if you have a back fence or something and you just want it to fill in, those would be the ones that probably are the best.
They all pretty much require a lot of moisture, maybe not wet, but
yeah. Do they all require a lot of moisture? No. The royal ferns must have moisture. That's their, they all like it medium to wet. The Christmas ferns will do better in dry areas. So that's why I call them tough. They're pretty much wherever you want to put them. The Christmas ferns will be okay. Okay. Yes.
They do on a side slope?
The ferns?
Yeah.
How do the ferns do on a side slope?
Well,
They're good. That's a good thing to put on a side slope. Because I mean, they'll stand upright, but they'll spread enough so that they fill in a space pretty well. Yeah. I'm not sure one or the other would be better in that regard. The Christmas fern doesn't get tall. You know, it's about maybe a foot tall or so. Whereas some of the other ones are like the cinnamon fern is a, you know, stockier. So depending on how much height you want in it, you can fill it that way. Yeah. Say that again. Oh, she asked, am I mulching for times of drought? I mulch in general, not just because of drought, but you know, when you plant native plants, you really don't want to have to water most of the time. I mean, that's one of the nice things about natives. If they're planted in the right place, you shouldn't have, you don't want to fertilize, and you shouldn't have to water. As I mentioned, I watered my rain garden because of the drought, which is weird. You know, rain gardens are supposed to depend on the rain, but yes, mulching of course would help. Anything, you know, that you have open space around them, you know. What it does though, depending how thick it is, it might keep the ones that drop seeds from being able to replant. Some of like the shooting stars or the trout lilies or something, okay. Right. All right, this is a red bud, which is not red, it's purple, pink, you know. You'll see them in the sun, but they really are an understory tree, so that, oops, went around it. The edge of woods, they wouldn't be in the deep woods, but you know, if you have a wooded area and you plant it on the edge, they'll get some shade part of the day, but still bloom nicely in the spring. And they're pretty well behaved. I mean, they stay medium sized. And sometimes they'll plant another little one and you can transplant it and put it wherever else you want it to be. This service sparrow, we make recommendations for people that are getting rid of buckthorn and what you replace and put in its place. This is one of the good ones to put in. A very nice, showy spring flower tree, and then a, you know, nice shrub the rest of the season. Oh, here's the red bud that I was talking about. Okay, well, I did that. Pagoda dogwood is one of my favorite. There's several dogwoods, of course, but the pagoda has the shape, you know, the leaves or the branches are tiered out. It stays pretty, it gets pretty wide. It can be maybe 8 or 9 feet wide and probably 12, 15 feet tall. So it's not, you know, it's not going to stay little. The gray dogwood is the one that will stay as a littler shrub, but this one has these beautiful flowers in the spring, and the bees love it. There's the downy hawthorn is a nice shaped native tree that can be, as you see it here, with sort of a landscape tree. The smooth hydrangea, this is the native, the hydrangea arborescens is the native hydrangea. You see you know, the nurseries have the Annabelle or some of the other ones, and I have an interesting story about that. When we moved in, the previous owners had planted a couple of the non-native hydrangeas along the driveway, and I put in the natives beside it, and in the summer the bees are all on the natives and they don't go to the non-natives at all. So. But it doesn't get quite as big a flower head on it, but it does get one. It's a pretty plant. The deer like this one too. Do you know about the oak leaf hydrangea? Is not native in Barrington. It's native a little bit south, like the Kankakee area. So in our restorations at CFC, we don't plant things. We plant only those that have had, you know, that come from a 30-mile radius. In your yard, you might not mind going a little farther afield and getting the ones from a little bit farther south. They have a beautiful leaf. They have these nice flowers, and they literally fill up a nice space. They get to be a good-sized shrub. bigger than the other than the arborescens. Okay. Here's another big tree. This one, I have a picture of the flowers rather than the whole shrub, but it's big. It can get to be a nice big tree. This is a really good one to plant in place of buckthorn. If you have, sometimes people have, we joke about the 5-acre lots that have 3 acres of lawn and 2 acres of buckthorn. we try to recommend that you take the buckthorn out and put one of these nice shrubs in instead. How are we doing time-wise? Got to move fast here. The wild black cherry, you might see these in the woods. They are locally native and pretty prolific. Good, nice pink, white flowers on in the spring, not a really big tree. There are, most of the roses need full sun. This Illinois rose will grow again on a woodland edge, a little bit of sun, not deep woods, and bloom. About the only native rose that does well in the shade. You probably know about the elderberry. This is another one that makes a good replacement for buckthorn. Gets big, this is full. Some of them are scrawnier than that, but they have the beautiful flowers on them. And then then they get the berries in the fall, and the birds love that. So in the fall, when other things aren't blooming, you've got that. And they grow fast. They're really, really a good thing if you have a bare space that you need to fill in quickly. That's a little bit about summer. This is an oak leaf hydrangea in the background. Oops. The baneberries I love. This is the white baneberry. The leaves are dying back here. They are ordinarily a green, but it's called doll's eyes because it's a little white ball with a black dot on it. And they're very showy. They're pretty. The shrub is only, I don't know, maybe 30 inches tall and round, so it's pretty well behaved. But there's also the red baneberry, and the combination together is really, really neat. They have the white flowers, but then the berries are a little clump on the end of it. Again, small shrubs, but they do die back in the fall, and they don't stay all winter. These are the wild leek. I just had some, I discovered some in my backyard, and I decided I'd make some vichyssoise, and the root is very small. It's not like a leek that you'd buy in the grocery store. It's tiny one. So you have to have a bunch of them. I was a weed monitor for the Deer Grove Forest Preserve, and one time I was out and I was just supposed to really be, pulling an occasional garlic mustard or whatever. There was a couple that didn't speak English out there digging the leeks, and I told them, you can't dig them in the Forest Preserve, but they obviously knew that they could make soup out of those. So that's, but we occasionally have those at the plant sale if you want to try them. They're a nice little plant too. You can have them just as a plant, but if you want to harvest them. What's that? We should have them. Thank you, Joy. Okay. Here's another anemone. The ones I showed you earlier, the rue anemone and the false rue anemone, are little. This gets to be tall. It's, I don't know, maybe 3 feet, 40 inches, and it has a nice white flower on it. And then when it's done flowering, the seed head is attractive, and the animals and the birds love it. It's just a little fluffy seed head. One of the ones that blooms later. Some of the other things were all spring bloomers. This is one of the summer bloomers. And of the milkweeds, the poke milkweed is the one will do the best in shade. Most of the other ones want full sun, so this is one of them. And the tall green as well. It's not as showy as the Asclepia, the butterfly weed, with the orange flowers is gorgeous, but that wants full sun. These are a little more for the shade if you want to get your milkweeds in there. And the tall bellflower is another one. Most of the natives that bloom in the shade are later. Are taller. The bellflower blooms in July and August, and it's a nice, nice to have a tall spike of color going there. The blue cohosh is blue because of its blue berries or blue seeds on it. Lovely little plant, but it's a little bit tender. So if it's in an area that is questionable, the soil or the deer or whatever, you might not want to worry about this, but a very nice plant, and it spreads, but it stays little too. By little, I mean, 30 inches max kind of thing. The Virgin's Bower is the only native vine. Well, there are two, one of few. It's a native clematis, and it's sun or shade. It'll bloom more if it gets more sun, but if you have I have a trellis along by my back door, and it just goes right up that and then gets really showy later in the summer. I've seen them on people's fences out, along a property edge with just a whole bower of flowers going. Of the Joe Pies, there's two, and the purpureum, this one is the one that grows in the woods. If you go out in the woods, you're likely to see it. It gets very tall. It's 6 feet, maybe 5 or 6 feet tall, so it's not going to be a front door plant. But if you have a wooded area and you want a little color, and again, it blooms later in the summer, and the bees love it. I mean, the flowers are all out there for it. The blue lobelia is another one like the marsh marigold that wants to be in the water or wet, but also it is fine in sun, but it can do a little shade, not dense shade, but if you have a speckled shade coming through, it'll do well. And it's very, very tall, again, a tall, spiky kind of a plant. There's several penstemons. The Penstemon digitalis, this white beard tongue penstemon is kind of being used more now. It is a good shade plant, and it's pretty well. I mean, it gets tall and it's a little plump, but it's pretty well behaved. You can put several of them in as an edge someplace. The Solomon seals, there's 3 of them that are native here. The Solomon seal, this one, the berries are blue and they grow under the leaf stalk. And oops, what do I have my other? There's the false Solomon seal, which is in here somewhere, has the red berries on the end. It's actually showier. This one gets taller. And the deer, sometimes they eat them all and sometimes they leave it. So if you have deer, you want to be careful about where you're putting that. Oh, the woodland knotweed. I don't know if you know this. It's not very common. I mean, it grows wild. You'll find it in the woods. We don't see it in the nurseries very often, but it has this long flower stalk that kind of bends over. And it too, it's like the one I showed you earlier, oh dear, that I said was growing by my shed, coming up with the name of it. This one's like that. It spreads and it fills in a nice space. Again, it's not going to be a specimen landscape plant, but if you have a wooded area that you want filled in, this is a good one to have it. Okay. Here's the native sedum, Sedum tornatum. It's the only sedum, the only native sedum in this area, but again, it's low like a sedum is, and it'll be a nice edge to a bed or a nice little area, and it has a pretty little white flower on it. But then the leaves, of course, stay all season, so they make a nice edging somewhere. Here's the false Solomon seal I was talking about that has the flower stalk on the end rather than under the leaves, and the red berries at the end of the season. Quite showy, a very, very attractive plant. And the starry Solomon seal. This one has the little white flowers come up on the end. It spreads a lot by root, but then it gets to be a nice massive white flower. So it's very pretty if you have a space for it to fill in. And pretty tough. I mean, it'll grow dry or damp or whatever. So those are the 3 Solomon seals. Golden Alexander is, there's 2 zizias. This one is the one that grows in the shade or shadier. Early in the spring it blooms, not early in the spring, early in the summer, about June or so. And again, it's a tall one, but it's nice. It'll fill in, at the time when there's not something else native blooming. And then we have some of the late summer and fall flowers. These are the woodland sunflowers I mentioned. Of the asters, the forked aster is the one that is, or there's a couple of them that are good in the shade. Spreads a lot, so it's, as asters tend to, I mean, it'll fill in a space, but it transplants easily. So you can, you know, if you get a couple plants and they get too many of them, you can move them around a little bit. Gets to be about 30 inches tall and blooms in the fall when we need to have things blooming for the butterflies before the monarchs before they migrate. So the forked asters and here's the short asters, the other one that's this one's a little prettier plant than the forked aster. Here's the woodland sunflowers that bloom in September typically. And will spread by roots, so they'll fill in an area. This is another one. Somebody asked about a hillside. This is a good one to put there. This is the other vine. I mentioned the virgin spower, but the Virginia creeper is a native plant, and people think that if it grows up a tree, it kills it, but it doesn't. It's fine, and it has this beautiful red leaves in the fall. So that's a good one to if you need a vine someplace. Goldenrod, besides the asters, the goldenrods are the other ones that are really good for something blooming in the fall for the butterflies. The blue stem goldenrod is one that grows in the shade. Most of them are sun. You know, the showy goldenrods are big that you see out in the prairies, but this one works well in the shade. And the zigzag goldenrod is the other one that does. And again, they're blooming at a time when most of the rest of the things are done blooming. So good ones to have. And the elmleaf goldenrod. This is very aggressive. It's not as bad as the tall goldenrod if you have been dealing with that, but it is it gets to be maybe 30 inches tall, and it's a pretty plant, but it'll just spread wherever. So if you're going to plant, you wouldn't plant one of them. If you want something to fill in an area, this would be good. If you're wanting to have more of a behaved one of the other goldenrods, the zigzag or the blue stem goldenrod would be better. But if you have a whole area to fill in, go for it with this one. And quickly, some information about the sedges and grasses. The burr sedge is a neat plant. You can tell in the photo, it's got, the burr looks like a medieval mace, you know, with a little ball with the spikes on it. It's really rather attractive. It wants to be wet, a little bit in the wet area, Carex grayi. And this one is more dry, the pen sedge. It stays shorter. If you're really wanting to replace grass, lawn grass, turf grass, the pen sedge would be in shade. The pen sedge is a great one to put in. It's not green in the winter, but it doesn't die back like the ginger does. It'll stay there. There'll be a plant there with the roots there that'll help erosion or whatever you're needing to do, or and it can be walked on. I mean, it's really tough. And the other woodland sedge is the curly wood sedge. It looks like the pen sedge, but I have this picture because it's of what the flower stalk looks like, and it's this little kinky little stem, and it gets a little bit taller than the pen sedge. But both of these are great for filling in a shade area that you want to be having ground cover. The longbeak sedge is another one that wants to be a little wet area, but it has that nice long seed head on it, which is very attractive. And that gets to be a little bit taller as well. Then there's the silky wild rye. I don't know if you've seen that. It grows in the shade just nicely, and it tends to drop its seeds wherever it wants. So you'll have these spread around a little bit, but it's an attractive plant. And there's the bottlebrush grass is another one that is works well in the shade. The pen sedge and the rosea are the ones that would make the best ground cover. These are more taller and a little more, you know, in the background probably. And the northern sea oats grows well in the shade. I think it probably grows well everywhere. It's very aggressive. When we have it at the plant sale, when people are buying it, I tell them that. I made the mistake of planting it along behind the ginger and expecting it to stay there, and it wanted to take over everything. So know that. If you, again, when I dug it up, I had a friend who had just taken out a huge patch of buckthorn in their wooded area, and they needed something to fill in. So this was a good plant for that, but it's not good as a specimen landscape plant because it'll take over. It's pretty though. The seed head in the fall flickers in the wind, so it's very attractive, but it is very aggressive. Okay, real quickly, some fall shrub and tree things. The sugar maple is one of the native maples. Be careful that you don't ever think about buying a Norway maple. We're trying to help people get rid of them. They create such dense shade that nothing will grow under them. The sugar maple, on the other hand, is a native, and it's obviously get this gorgeous color in the fall. The blue beech is another one that has a pretty fall color, and fine in the shade. Most of these, are a little sun, a little shade is good. The bitternut hickory gets gorgeous yellow leaves in the fall, and has the hickory nuts on it. The animals love them. The squirrels and everybody are feasting in the fall. I showed you the pagoda dogwood earlier. This is the gray dogwood. It's growing pretty wild in our forest preserves and in any natural areas. You can buy it and plant it and have it as a specimen shrub as well. It's not as tall and broad as a pagoda dogwood, but it can be a nice shrub. It has these lovely berries on it that the birds love in the fall. Here's the spice bush. Pretty nice green in the summer, and then the yellow leaves in the fall, and the little red berries. It is a little airier. It's not a dense shrub. It kind of grows in a nice position. So a very pretty one to fill in a space and find in the shade. Be careful if you buy a tulip tree. There's a lot of things that are called tulip trees that are not native. Make sure you're looking for the native, the Latin names on them. But that is one that is blooms in the spring in a pretty fall color. And there's the ironwood, a bit bigger tree. Again, it could be a landscape tree standing by itself, but it's okay in the shade as well. And the red oaks. Of the oaks, the red oak is the one that is best in the shade. It's really an understory tree. It's smaller than some of the other big oaks, and of course turns that beautiful color in the fall. There's the black currant that grows in the woods. It's a shade plant, and if you're lucky, you get some berries on it. The animals are likely to get there before you do. And this was the elderberry. I showed you the shrub before. This is what the berries look like in the fall, and just can be loaded with it, and all the birds are really happy to have those in the fall. And then the snowberries. There's a winter berry that has red berries that needs sun. The snowberry grows in the shade, but this is dioecious. You have to have male and female plants of them, and which is kind of hard to know sometimes. I bought 3. And I assumed that they would have both male and female. And I got a couple of berries on one, but it isn't as berrying as I want. But the berries, when they do, the berries last into the winter. So they're really attractive in an area where you might be seeing them in the winter. And then there's the black haw viburnum. Oh dear, time-wise. Lovely, again, big shrub. Nice shape. Good color in the fall. And the maple leaf viburnum, this is the one that really is the happiest in the shade. It wants to be in the shade. The others can do sun or shade. Its leaf looks like a maple leaf, and it has a beautiful scarlet color in the fall, and it stays a little bit smaller. It'll get to be, well, maybe 6 or so feet tall and round. It's not as big as the other viburnums, but a really good shade plant. Here's the fountain I talked about that has the maidenhair ferns around it and the ginger. And this is in the spring with the woodland phlox spread itself. I didn't plant them that way. I had some of them, and then they spread themselves around, so it makes it pretty. So these are photos from our yards around here, a few from the Illinois Wildflowers, but most of them are yards. And talk about our plant sale, the first weekend in May every year at the Hillendale Preserve. I can now take more questions if anybody has them.
I have, so a couple of things. I'm sorry. Hold on one moment. We will ask, I have a question from someone online that I'll pose first, and we will ask, wait till you're handed the microphone to ask your question, if you would, please, for the benefit of the folks on Zoom. And someone asked a question about the May, June flowers that I didn't see until you had moved on. So this person has propagated Jack in the Pulpit a number of times, and it always dies. Are there any tips or tricks to make the Jack in the Pulpit last?
It wants good soil. So if it's in clay, it's probably not going to make it. It will come up naturally in the deep woods where there's a lot of compost and mulch left from the leaves from the past. Other than that, well, the other issue is deer, but otherwise, that's what I can say.
Do you consult with people during the plant sale?
What's
Like if someone comes in with a question like that, would you be able to help them
Yes,
isolate?
I tend to work in the shade plants on the plant sales, so I'm there helping you make decisions about them.
Thank you.
Dr. Ostrowski.
Could you recommend a buckthorn replacing plant or shrub that tolerates road salt?
Ah. Well, the elderberry, for sure. They're tough. The gray dogwood. I have some by the road, get road salt. I think some of the viburnum probably would. Does anybody else have experience with shrubs that tolerate road salt? Yeah. Oh, Charlie will know.
Two things with that, with the road salt. First, you want to do a test of the soil and see if it's actually road salt. It could be other things. So test the soil for the road salt. The road, okay. Then possibly putting, for the first few years, putting burlap between the road and the plants. So basically it's like a baby. The first 3 years is really important to get them started. And then once they're established, they're more resistant to it. So if you can do a little bit extra care, gypsum is something that you can put in the soil. That's why I recommend a soil test. So if it is salty, before you do any planting, put some gypsum and incorporate gypsum down and maybe some carbon-based things so that way you can neutralize that salt. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's good. I just have to tell a little personal story here. Dr. Ostrowski replaced my knee last spring, and I skied this winter. Okay, more questions.
Just a quick, for curiosity's sake, you mentioned ants help to plant things. Are they responsible for my celandine poppies moving everywhere? Because there's that plush seed pod.
That is a wonderful question. I don't know if they are. I do know that the celandine poppies, yeah, will spread themselves around.
But they're just over there. I never put one over there.
I'll have to look into that because you're right. They do have the the pulp around them. That'd be interesting to know.
Okay. Once you remove the buckthorn from the wooded areas, but how long does it take before that chemical dissipates? Should you plant it maybe in the next year? Any planting?
Yeah. To remove buckthorn, were you all able to hear that? At least a year, you know, because one of the problems with the buckthorn is that it poisons the soil. That's why the little oaks can't grow up around it on that shade as well. But I think if you remove it and you have to herbicide the stump, we recommend just a paintbrush of herbicide so you're not spraying it around. But then I would at least a year. and depending on what you're planting, some things are tougher than others and might make it, but anything, you know, that's tender is, unless you have a way of being able to dig and replace some of the soil. But if, you know, if you don't dig, you might get some good stuff coming up that has been hiding there and wanting to have it get freed. I discovered that, you know, when we cut down all the buckthorn in my yard, and the next spring, as I mentioned, the blue anemones were coming up, and the shooting stars that lay dormant for a long time. So it's best if you can cut it, herbicide it, and then leave it. Not mulching, but you know, when you're trying to kill grass or something, you use a newspaper or black plastic or something. You don't want to do that after the buckthorn, because it's the poison in the soil that's the problem, not the plants that are coming up. Charlie, do you know does it need to be more than a year?
The other important, yeah, I know. The other important thing is the buckthorn seeds can last for years in the soil. So you don't want to be trying to do that, because those seeds will come up and they will outcompete your native plants. Only because they're more aggressive. The native plants are what we need long-term. So waiting until the resprouts come up from any dormant seed for a year or two, then you can look at doing additional planting. And I agree. I found a lot of sites where there were definitely lots of great things that came up that were just sitting dormant, waiting.
Free, yeah. Good, thank you.
Yeah, they needed some.
Charlie, before you give the microphone back, we have someone asking, where is a good place to get soil tested?
University of Illinois is one of the good places. You know, that's probably the local, and then the extension service would be the other one. You can get some soil tests, you know, from garden centers, but it doesn't necessarily give you the detail that you want in regards to any kind of issues with unique things such as salt and such as the pH exactly. And sometimes it's just a matter of taking a shovel and digging down, as you mentioned. You know, if it's a heavy clay soil, you want to make sure that you plant something that's a tougher plant. And that's good. Good.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, I have a couple questions. One is with regard to planting where there's a lot of pine trees, spruces, and it's really, really shady, but also very, very dry.
Mhm.
And then the other question was with respect to pet-friendly sedges and grasses. You know, the pen sedge is great and all that, but some of the other ones, do they have the grass awns that could potentially get stuck in their eyes or noses, you know, for dogs and cats as they run through the areas?
I think both the pen sedge and the rosea would be fine for dogs to romp through. Wouldn't damage them too much and wouldn't get on their feet. Some of the sedges that I mentioned for wetland, the burr sedge and the longbeak sedge have seeds on them. But if it's a wet area, maybe the dogs are still going to go through it.
Oh, the
Whatever.
wetter, the better, you know.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
They like to make a mess.
And your other question was?
And the other question was with regard to planting underneath evergreens, pines, spruces, where it's very dense, but it's also very dry.
Yeah, the Virginia waterleaf will probably do fine. It might take a little while to get established.
Even
But-
though it's very dry?
Yeah, that's fine.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's why you asked.
I would think because it said water leaf.
Well, it's called waterleaf because it's speckled. The leaves look like water drops on it, but you know, but it's tough. It'll grow. Once it's established, it'll do fine. So, yeah.
I had two questions. Is there a possibility to remove buckthorn without using herbicide?
Yes.
Yeah, after years,
Digging.
say after a couple years, if we keep cutting it down, would
Dig-
that
you-
effectively?
You have to dig it. You'd have
dig it
to
out?
dig the root out because the root will keep sprouting as long as
Okay.
it's.
And my second question is, we have a lot that's on the corner and we have like a water channel that goes along the edge of the lot that connects the other lots together. Is it possible to plant native plants in that water channel?
Probably, how much water and how is it?
Well, when it rains, it's sort of like a tilted like gully almost, and the water collects down that gully and goes down to like a drainage route, I would call it.
Well, that would be a good place for uh, the blue flag iris wants to have its feet in the water, and the marsh marigold. And they don't have to be wet all the time, but they like the moisture. So they would, the reason I asked about the volume, if it's huge volumes, you don't want them to wash away, but as it happened with my iris, as I mentioned, it washed off the hill and moved it down into the gully part. And there's some others, there's some of the sedges that are good in the wet too, so that you might consider those. Yeah.
Regarding, it sounds like is it a ditch near the road? Okay, so that might be on village property, so depending on which town you live in, before you plant anything in there, it's not technically your property, even though you're required to maintain it. So check with your local municipality just to find out, hey, if I plant some native plants here, are you guys okay with that?
She knows about Lake Barrington. Okay, well, thank you all very much for coming. Good luck.
Thanks, Peggy.
As Ellen mentioned at the beginning, we have our Habitat Quarters program. For members, we can do about a 1-hour visit and help you recommend the plants for particular areas if you're interested. So thank you.
No,